Hey everyone, today I am back in Chaos Zero Nightmare, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be taking a look at one of my favorite characters and just kind of talk about them a little bit, Mei Lin. Now, this is the character that I was the most interested in getting when the game was still kind of like being teased and we saw some trailers, as I just really liked the kind of thematic that she was going for. I'm very partial to the martial artist kind of vibe, and I'm also a very big fan of dragons, and well, she seemed to kind of combine both of them. She has a lot of punching and kicking going on with her basic cards, and she also summons a dragon with her ultimate where she empowers herself with the flames of the dragon. Kind of really cool, so that's why I kind of wanted to get her. I didn't even know if she was any good or not, but I just really liked her vibe, which is why I built her as soon as I got my hands on her. Now, after having played with her for a bit, I can say that she is a pretty strong character. Her only downside really is that she has 0 AoE, but there are a couple of ways that you can kind of get around that with some teammate options that I'll talk about in a bit. But she has a very strong single target focus where she's able to also implant a special weakness on the enemy called Embers. And when you then ravage the enemy, aka break their tenacity bar, she's going to be dealing a bunch of bonus damage on top of that. So she's really strong in single target scenarios. However, you can also bring her into any team because she's very AP friendly. She can play a lot of cards a turn with very little cost attached to it. And she can also implant her own weakness onto the enemies that she is fighting. So again, you can bring her into just about every content because she provides her own weakness implant, which I think is really cool. So if you end up pulling her, definitely worth investing into because she is a solid DPS that you can just bring everywhere, as she will always be able to perform the best that she can. So let's then take a look at some of her cards. Now, for Mei Lin, her basic cards are actually going to be a very large portion of her damage for two reasons. One, they are one of the drivers of the Ember mechanic, as you can see over here, 1 Ember on the card itself. And then we also have Unity of Attack and Defense, which is going to draw 2 basic cards and then give them 0 cost for that turn. So it's definitely worth investing into this basic card potential over here to give them 20% bonus damage. Her ult is also going to work with her basic cards, as it will give it +1 hits to the next 4 basic cards that you use, so definitely very good to keep these basic cards around. Now, because of that, we do kind of want to get rid of the shield card, as we don't really care about that one too much, so delete that as soon as you can, and then you'll always be pulling the strike cards to do as much damage as possible with them. The Ember mechanic itself is then written over here. Whenever you hit or defeat a target in the breakthrough state, you get 30% bonus damage per stack of Ember, and this is going up to 5 stacks in total. And then whenever it triggers this damage effect, the Embers will be removed. So basically, while you are reducing the tenacity on the boss, you are going to be stacking up Ember stacks, and then when you break the tenacity and put the boss in the Ravage state, you will be triggering the bonus damage from these Embers depending on how many stacks you had. You can rank these up quite quickly with, of course, your basic attacks. We have one over here as well, which will apply 2 Embers on the boss. And there's a couple of other ways that we can get them too, through Epiphanies on some of her cards as well. So you can usually get quite a few of these Ember stacks going before you end up ravaging the boss. Flame Dragon's Jewel is then the reason why we can bring her everywhere, because when using an attack card, we implant 1 passion weakness to the target. This lasts for 1 turn, and then of course we also get 20% attack damage on top of that for all of our attack cards. Rising Dragon Spire is going to be a combo card. This will implant 2 Embers, and then if we combo this, we get +1 hit. If you don't know how combo works, basically the card that we play before this one needs to be a passion card as well. So in other words, another card from Mei Lin herself, or from a character that has the passion attribute as well. So for example, Maribel is also a passion character. If you use one of her cards and then you use Rising Dragon Spire, it will get that +1 hit. Unity of Attack and Defense will then draw your 2 basic cards and give them -1 cost for a turn. Very powerful. If you copy this card a couple times, you can do some cool things with this as well. Spirit of the Armata is your basic buff card. This also has Retain on it, so you can just keep it around from where you have the good setup to use this, and then you give 20% to all of your card damage for 1 turn. And then we have Flame Dragon's Sovereignty, the very big nuke, which is going to do a very nice damage multiplier over here. And the cool thing about this card is if you break the enemy with this, like if you ravage them, reduce their tenacity to 0, whatever you want to call this, then you will actually retain your Embers. So let's say, for example, you've got 5 Ember stacks on the enemy, You use this to break them, you do this huge multiplier plus the 150% from the embers, you keep the embers, you've built up combos, so now you can use this to follow up with that. And then if you've got certain epiphanies to make this hit even harder, well, then you're going to be doing a lot of extra damage. In terms of important epiphanies, there's only really one in my opinion. Not necessarily because it's the best one out there, but because it's the most fun to me personally. And that's this one. Move own 2 basic cards to hand and give them -1 cost. Now, you might be wondering, what's the difference between move own 2 basic cards to hand or draw 2 basic cards and then give them -1 turn? Because this just seems better, right? Through draw 2 basics and then give them 50% bonus damage. That's just better than drawing 2 basic cards, right? Well, the main difference is that drawing the basic cards only works when they're not in your hand. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have 1 card in your hand and you use Unity of Attack and Defense, you will only pull the other basic card. Of course, this is taking into account that you've already deleted the shield, because if the shield is there, then you can still pull that one, of course, as well. But let's say we only have the 2 strike cards in our deck. If one of them is in our hand, when we play Unity of Attack and Defense, we will just pull the other one. So we have 1 strike with 1 cost, and we have 1 strike with 0 cost. If you have neither of them in your hand, it will just draw both of them and they'll both have 0 cost. However, if you have 1 strike card in your hand and you play it to get it out of your hand, and you then play Unity of Attack and Defense, you would assume that you draw both of them now, because they're not in your hand, right? However, when you play a card, it goes into a special played card pile where you can't draw from. So that kind of makes it so that you will never be able to play more than 2 strike cards a turn whenever you use this. However, if you have the second epiphany where it says move own 2 basic cards to hand, you'll actually be able to play multiple copies of your strike, because you can actually draw from the played card pile with this specific epiphany. Meaning that if you duplicate this card, and if you, let's say for example, you have 3 of these in your hand for whatever reason, you're able to play all 3 of them in the same turn, and you'll always draw 2 basic cards. So you'll be able to use a lot of basic cards and do a lot of fucking damage with that. So that is why this is my personal favorite one, because it's just the most fun, and because there's like no restrictions on it. Of course, if you have none of the cards in your hand, and you have the left one over here, they're just going to be doing a lot more damage, so that one's really cool. Same thing with the right one, 100% more basic attack damage is very strong as well. However, they all come with their own caveats. This one has a high cost, and you need to draw the basic cards in the first place. Same thing with the upgrade card, it just creates 2 strike cards for you that have 0 cost, but again, you have to pull them. Whereas with Unity of Attack and Defense, you can just rack up a lot of combo with that. And that just feels incredibly fun, so that's why this is my personal favorite. Is it the best? Probably not. Is it the most fun? Definitely, at least for me. The other cool one that we then have is on Rising Dragonspire, which is the one on the right here, where it turns it into a 2-cost card. However, for every passion card that you used on that turn, it gets +1 hits. Again, think back to using this card and potentially playing like 6 basic attacks in 1 turn, plus 2 of these, that's 8 cards. Well, then this is going to be dealing a hell of a lot of damage, because you get the 171% times like 6 or 7 times. So this can go completely crazy if you have the correct setup for it. Of course, it says passion cards used for 1 turn, meaning that your other teammates can also be using their cards, and if they have like a couple of 0-cost cards maybe, then well, this can also turn into quite a bit of damage. So there's a really cool combo to be done with this card if you have the correct setup for it. Same thing with the middle option, where it gives +1 hit to the next passion card used. This is really nice if you want to, for example, buff your Flame Dragon's sovereignty, but again, it requires the correct setup for it. The save options then are the ones on the left, where it gives +2 hits on the combo, so a bit of extra damage there, or where it applies 3 embers and a bigger damage number. Those are the 2 save options. The rest I probably don't really use that much, but the right card, I definitely want to try and get this to work at some point and just get a ridiculous screenshot of her hitting like a ridiculous number on the enemy. This could definitely be a lot of fun. But yeah, those are like the 2 important epiphanies I guess I would kind of wanted to showcase. In terms of her partners, of course, if you have one of the 5-star partners, they are going to be the best. There's no way around that. But the next best thing is this 4-star over here. Very powerful for her, because it makes all of her cards with 0 or 1 cost deal more damage. And it also has a stacking effect that whenever you use a skill card, you get extra card damage for 1 turn, and this stacks up to 3 times. So again, let's say for example, you play Spirit of the Aromata for the damage bonus, then you play Unity of Attack and Defense to draw your 2 basic cards. Well, now you've already stacked it up twice. So you have like 2 out of the 3 max stacks from that. So she is very powerful if you're able to get her. In terms of her memory fragments, there's a few I would recommend. For the 4-piece, just go for Spark of Passion. Whenever you use an upgraded card, the next 5 cards you use get 15% passion card damage. Should be able to get that going quite easily. And then for the 2-piece, I'd recommend the 12% attack for now, but you could also run 25% crit damage if you have enough crit rate for it, or running the 20% basic attack damage bonus as well. But I think 4-piece passion and then 2-piece attack is probably the best to go for now. In terms of her teammates, probably right now if you're free to play, you don't have that many characters, Mika and Rei are amazing. Mika, of course, provides a lot of sustain, and she also gives a lot of AP, so you can use even more cards than you already can in the first place. And Rei is just a very good buffer because of this card right here, the upgrade where you get 40% damage on 1-cost cards, and if you're able to get this Epiphany specifically, where it gives it to 1-cost or below, then it's even better. Of course, if you can't get that one, this one is still good, where it gives 60% to 1-cost cards. The others aren't really that great, but this one is definitely the one to look out for if you can. On top of that, she also provides 4 morale with this card, which morale is really good for a character that does a lot of small hits, and of course Mei Lin does a lot of extra hits, with her basic attacks hitting multiple times because of her ultimate, or Rising Dragonspire just getting the combo +1/+2 hits, or of course going completely nuts with this upgrade right here. Those are all going to be buffed by morale, so in that sense morale will be better than like vulnerable on the enemy or something like that. And then of course we have Strike of Darkness if you're able to get the upgrade version of this, where it gives 80% to your basic attack card damage, also going to be really nice. If you don't want to run these two, or you've already got them locked up in a different team for example, then we can of course run Maribel. She's a very good sustain character as well, a lot of shields, provides a good amount of damage too. And one of my personal favorites is Selena, as she is able to also inflict tenacity damage, so it's going to work with that Ember mechanic that Mei Lin has. But she also fixes a little bit of her AoE problems with drone bombing. This will of course deal AoE to all enemies, but if you get this upgrade, it will also mark all enemies for 2. And if you don't know how mark works, whenever you play a damaging card, she will attack every enemy that has mark. So let's say for example you have a boss, and the boss has 4 enemies summoned. If you mark all the enemies and Mei Lin hits the boss, then Selena will hit everybody that has mark. So all the enemies, so all 4 of the adds will get hit, and maybe the boss as well if the boss also has mark attached to him. So you can do some really cool stuff with those two together. You're not necessarily going to be buffing Mei Lin's damage or like Mei Lin's personal damage, but Selena is going to be outputting a lot of her own personal damage when Mei Lin takes her turns because of the mark mechanic. So just think she's a really fun support, where she's not necessarily like a support, but kind of like a sub DPS for Mei Lin, I guess you could say. And of course, because she is a passion character, she is going to be providing that combo for Mei Lin as well, for her Rising Dragonspire. And of course, Flame Dragon's Jewel, the passion weakness implant, is also going to be affecting Selena's damage. So that's why I really like running those two together. It also frees up my Rei to be used in a different team, same thing for Mika, I can use her somewhere else. There's definitely a lot of options that you can go with for Mei Lin, because again, she just kind of fits into every team. Just slap a sustainer with her, slap like a buffer or like a sub DPS like Selena with her, and she will do just fine. And I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to talk about. I didn't really want to do like an in-depth like informational guide on the character or whatever. Just kind of want to talk about one of my favorite characters in the game, because she has just been so much fun ever since I gotten her. She has basically not left my teams, and I'm going to be experimenting with her a lot more, try and get like that perfect build going towards the end of my Chaos runs. Just been having a lot of fun with her, and hopefully when you guys get her, you might give her like a second look and try and build her up as well. Play around with her a bit, because she is definitely a lot of fun. But if you have anything to add to that, feel free to leave a comment down below. And with that, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.